Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I'm your host Joe Garrett and I'm being joined by a gaggle of Olis today. First off, I of course have my co-host Oli Guy, as always, joining me.
Oi oi.
Oi oi Oli. And today we're also going to be joined by Oli Brotherhood, who is best known as Mumbo Jumbo on their YouTube channel. If you play or know anything about Minecraft, probably doesn't need any introduction. But for those of you that don't know, very famous for his contraption videos, creative ideas, involvement in the Hermitcraft server. All sorts of different things on YouTube. So welcome to the Bonus Points, Oli.
It's good to be here. Yeah, I'm excited. That was like... using the term famous in my introduction is a good way to get me started.
Big Shot Oli is joining us. We were discussing how to not make this too confusing when we have two Olis and a game where the main trick you do is an Oli. We were talking about maybe Oli Guy being backwards cap Oli and then Oli Brotherhood being forward cap Oli. Audio listeners, that might make things a little bit more difficult, but that's the best we've come up with so far. So, right, Oli Brotherhood, let's go straight to you. Should we discuss the game that you chose for us all to play for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I chose Skate, and this is I mean, when you ask me the question of like what game do you want to do for the podcast, it's kind of one of those things where I just it's so hard to name, and especially as someone who it doesn't necessarily game too much. It's like my list is really narrow, but then all the games that I do play are also really important to me in a way. But I think Skate kind of defined a lot of my childhood in a way. So it seemed like the obvious choice, and also I don't know. I mean, this could surprise me, but I also feel like you guys might not have played much Skate, or maybe Skate games in general. I don't know.
This is the place to find out. I appreciate how seriously you took the question. Like we did, like every time like I ran into you, like I'd always be like, "Have you decided yet? Have you decided yet?" And you'd always be like, "I've narrowed it down to 3." Like I'm all like you're like sweating, and then even once you got down to Skate, it's like, well, Skate 1, 2, or 3. Which one's the perfect one? So I know you did really spend a lot of time working it out. So before we go to
what else was up for consideration?
Oh yeah, so obviously the 3 were Skate 1, 2, and 3. There was there's obviously diving into the Skate universe. There's obviously the 3 Skate games, but then outside of that, I mean, obviously like Minecraft is a pretty big one, but that that's easily covered ground, I guess. And then there's all sorts. There's like the Toy Story game that I used to play on my PlayStation 1. There's Super Smash Bros. Melee that I used to play with my cousin. I was like briefly really heavily into like Call of Duty 4.
Okay.
Nice. So that there was potential for that game being on the list. And then Skate. Yeah, I mean, there's also all the different kind of skating related games. There's like the Tony Hawk's games, which are a lot more like arcadey, and then there's some of the old BMXing games as well. Like I was definitely into those sorts of games, but Skate kind of like stands in its own sort of space, I guess. It was a bit of an odd one, I suppose. That's why it came to mind, basically. Yeah.
This could have been a very different episode. I mean, like Skate compared to like Toy Story 1 on the PS1.
Toy Story,
this could have gone many different ways.
In Spyro, they actually had like one of like the things that I used to do most in Spyro is ride the skateboard in the skate park of Spyro. So we could have maybe done a skating related Spyro episode.
Toy Story's got skateboarding in it as well. I've seen the link between between what you like. Right, so Oli, Oli Guy, do you have the summary of kind of just what Skate is for those that might not be familiar with the franchise?
I do, and it's really short for some reason. I don't know why the Wikipedia page for Skate 2007 is so short, but I read out everything I could glean from it. So Skate is a 2007 skateboarding video game for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and mobile phones. It was developed by EA Black Box. 2 sequels, Skate 2 and Skate 3, have been released for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, as well as Skate It, a spin-off for the Wii, Nintendo DS, and iOS platforms. In 2020, EA announced plans for a new Skate game. It received positive reviews from critics. And then I just scrolled past some reception stuff, and it said Skate was added to Microsoft backwards compatibility program in June 2019. And that's it.
Is that it? Yeah. Oh, I think I've maybe overestimated the cultural impact of Skate.
Well, I think you might have maybe overestimated Skate 1, because something that I found when trying to do my research is it's really hard to find anyone talking about Skate 1. Like Skate 3 is huge in terms in like the conversation, but trying to find stuff to do with just Skate, you either get Skate 3 or just like skateboarding, like real skateboarding. It's really hard. I'm like searching like Skate video game development and stuff just to try to really find something specific about the game.
Yeah, their SEO is not great. You know, it's kind of a one word, and it is the sport. It's like if you had like a cycling game and it was just called Bike. You know, it's like.
Well, I guess it'd be called like Cycle. I suppose.
I guess so. Yeah.
Skate is the thing you do.
That's true.
So you suspected that we had never played this before. I don't know whether whether you've played it before. Have you played any of the Skate series before?
It's so strange hearing you say my full name, but I played Skate 3 when they added it to the backwards compatibility program 2019, but I didn't play it for very long. I just kind of was like just kind of messing around, and it was also on sale for like £4, so I wasn't really like super invested or anything. So I played a little bit of it. Like I knew about the flick sticking and whatever the rest. So I knew what it was like, but then I never played one until now, these last 2 weeks.
Okay. And then so my experience was I played Skate 1 demo, which was a pretty good demo. It was like let you just play for like half an hour in like one of the early areas. And even though obviously like you don't get the whole city and all of the challenges, like a lot of the fun in the game is kind of just messing around doing tricks anyway. So like the demo didn't like mean like, oh, you can't do grab tricks, or you like you didn't lock off that side of it. So I actually played the demo quite a lot back in the day, cool. But then never played any of the other franchise, but was a huge fan of the Tony Hawk's games, like especially like PS2 era Tony Hawk's games. They were like a big part of my childhood, so that's kind of when I think of skating games, that's like what my mind goes back to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, after playing Skate a bunch over the past few days, I think I'm starting to realize I probably played Skate 3 more than I played Skate 1. But with that being said, there are some like iconic parts for me of Skate that are definitely like I've spent a lot of time in Skate 1 in, I think it's called like the community center is like one of the areas in Skate, and it's just this really cool skate park. It's got like a snake run and then like this hidden half pipe and stuff like that. And when I logged in the other day, I just found myself just going back there, finding old lines that I used to do like all the time, and it was all kind of flooding back to me. But yeah, I think again, nostalgia is like an amazing thing, and I'm sure you hear this a lot on your podcast, and I'm sure you realize this a lot on your podcast, is that I kind of hadn't realized it definitely has the yellowy filter that all games from the late 2000s seem to have just been hit with. Like that's the part of my brain that I didn't really realize was there. And I would say the camera angle is slightly more clunky than I potentially remembered it being. In terms of, I like the idea that it matches the aesthetic of like a skate video, but equally, I think it can sometimes be like possessed by many demons sometimes, and it would just kind of like go all around you, and it's kind of you lose control. So that was interesting for me.
I remember in Skate 3 the first thing I did was you could change the options so the camera was like just normal.
Oh right.
And when I played Skate 1, the first thing I tried to do was like, so I'll go in the options and like move the camera. Like I played for a bit like that, but I was like, have a look. You just can't. It's like you are along the ground or nothing.
They've locked it in.
It's kind of the double whammy, because you got the super low camera angle, but also your right analog stick is reserved for tricks. So you don't have any control to turn the camera as well. So you have a tough angle, and a lot of the ways in kind of platformers, this is kind of, I guess, platformer adjacent, at least you need precise movement. A lot of the way you kind of judge the depth is by that movement. And so sometimes it can be, it's not as that bad, but it can be maybe a little bit more difficult than you would expect to do a simple thing, especially if you're like trying to like jump down some stairs onto a rail. Yeah. It's very difficult to kind of judge when do you jump and your speed, because normally I'd be kind of lifting the camera up to like see ahead, like if I'm going to drop down somewhere, and that stuff's probably a little bit more difficult than it could have been. But maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit. Should we talk about kind of just what is unique about this game in terms of a skating game, but also in terms of like games in general? So Oli Brotherhood, do you want to kind of talk about like just the way that you control your skater in this game?
Yeah, so I can't quite remember how Tony Hawk's and games like that did skating related tricks, but from what I remember, and you can speak to this, they were very like button mashy. And you'd kind of like go up in the air and then you just kind of go like that, and then your skater would just do a bunch of stuff, and then you'd land and you'd be like, great, that was cool, or that wasn't cool. Whereas the skate games tried their best to introduce something that kind of mimics how a skateboard actually works in real life. So your right analog stick is what controls your flip tricks, so you have to mimic what your foot would do on a skateboard with your right thumb, basically. So if you want to do a kickflip, you have to like pull the right analog stick down and then flick it up slightly off to the right, and then that mimics a kickflip. And like pop shove it's is like you kind of have to pull down and then go up and then to the right, which would be or right or left, and that would give you the corresponding pop shove it and things, which made it feel, I guess, a little bit more like you were. Like you could kind of suspend your disbelief enough that you tricked yourself into thinking that you were actually skateboarding, you know?
I played the game for 20 minutes. I went outside and did a double kickflip, so it really did.
With your thumb as well. It was like your thumb on the board.
Yeah. I was doing like a headstand and just go for it. I couldn't see where I was going though, so I crashed into a wall because I couldn't turn.
I think the controls, I was thinking like the right stick's kind of like your legs, the left stick's your body, and then you've got your two hands on your two triggers, and then you've got the B button is like, the B button is like don't use your feet. It's like that button. It's like don't skateboard, and then like basically by thinking of it like that, I could like see someone doing a trick and then be like, oh, I kind of can figure out how to do that because I can see what they've done. So that was like a very unique and cool way of like setting up the controls, because you're right about Tony Hawk's. It's literally like you just mash square for flip tricks, circles grabs, triangles grind, right? And then while you're grinding, you just keep mashing grind, and it will like do all different things.
yeah. I think that's where the skate games, at least for me, someone who was. It's funny. I wasn't actually a skateboarder. I was like a BMXer. But no BMXing. All the BMXing games were very similar to how Tony Hawk's worked, and that they were very much. They were very kind of arcadey, whereas Skate kind of felt like a game that mimicked my experience of like BMXing, I guess. So on rainy days, instead of going to the skate park, like I would just play Skate and live in an alternate universe where I was really good.
Obviously, this is a game kind of. You're saying it's like a nostalgia game for your childhood, and obviously nostalgia is often a double-edged sword. So going back to it in 2024, was there anything that surprised you, like impressed you, disappointed you? Like what was your impression of this game going back to it now?
So yeah, definitely like the camera angle. I think at the time, because I consumed so much skate media, I used to watch loads of skate films and things like that. I think the camera angle matched skate video like pretty well, but I think from a gameplay perspective, it is actually quite. Yeah, it's quite difficult. It's like, as you say, there's certain points in time where you want to jump down a stair set, or even you're coming up to something that you're coming up to something that you perhaps don't recognize. Say you can just see a ledge, and you're like, is this a stair set? Is this a downward slope? Is this like a quarter pipe? Am I going to go into like a river? What's in front of me? I have no idea. And then you just kind of like kickflip off and just like Hail Mary it. So yeah, I think that was like a surprise. I think like graphically, I actually do think it holds up pretty well. I mean, 2007. I guess it's not that old, but it's old enough that I thought
Mate, it's almost 20 years old. It's almost 20 years old.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's
I
crazy.
think, I think it holds up okay, but the yellowish filter is just something that, or like the whatever color correction grade they had on it, I think has aged poorly. And
I noticed going between different zones, it's actually the filter's different on like which area you're in. Because I recorded footage, if I like skip through quick, it's like it's kind of hard to tell in the game.
Yeah.
So they kind of have different like post-processing over like which district in the city you're in.
That's kind of cool. I'm now back on board with it. But then I think I don't know if I just couldn't find this control, but as far as I can tell, you can't get off your skateboard. Did any of you get off your skateboard?
You can
not without falling over.
Yeah, you can in midair.
Yeah, in midair,
but you have to land on the board again.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, and that's really clunky. So that's not something that's in Skate 3, and I'm imagining Skate 2. You can like dismount your board and like walk to a spot and like climb up things, which gives you access to much more interesting features. It's really frustrating when there's like a feature that's just beyond a curb, and you're like, okay, I want to get to that, and then you jump, and then you just end up like doing like a stall on the curb, and you're just like, oh yeah, I kind of want to go over the curb, and then you try and do it, and then you just fall off, and then you respawn like back on the other side of the curb, and you almost have to do these like huge like shipping container style maneuvers where you have to kind of do a massive turn and then like come back around and then hopefully you don't get hit by a car and then like ollie up onto a curb just so you can get to something that you want to skate. That was unexpectedly really frustrating. And that's not something I remember at all. I always assumed that you could get off your board, but I guess I've kind of like mixed a few of the games in my head there.
The placing down this, like if you want to do like a session, you can like place a session point and then kind of like respawn back to it. Trying to place one of those like accurately, where like you can't really turn and like, you're like, I want to be facing this way. It's just like so fiddly and difficult to be like, you want to do the session because some challenges they ask you to do something very specific, but then in that challenge, if you mess it up, you can't use the session respawn point every time. Sometimes you have to go through a menu and retry it, and it's like, why? Sometimes do I have to press retry? Why? Because sometimes I just press up and like teleport back.
That's really interesting.
That did feel old, but I will say like, look, we're being really negative. There's a lot to like.
Yeah. Sorry,
We're really jumping on it.
I kind of hopped in on it, just like an 11. I think it's because I've literally just been playing it, and like there was a stair set that I really wanted to do, but a curb was in the way, and it's. Okay, wait, hang on. Do I have the buttons as well?
Hey, he loves this game. Top of the list. Congratulations.
Oh my God.
That's so funny.
I hope if that didn't get captured in some way, there was a bunch of fireworks behind Ollie, and for audio listeners as well. That's why we all freaked out.
But I think I am coming in quite hot. No, there's lots to love about the game, but there are certain features that I do think feel dated, and they feel like I think they obviously get sorted out in the later games, but they're so glaringly obviously missing that you're almost surprised that they were in the game in the first place. Like the idea that you wouldn't be able to get off your board is just a bizarre. It's quite odd. It feels strange.
I guess you know what you like about these games, and so that doesn't really kind of immediately stand out. And then whereas these kind of like niggling things might kind of stand out a little bit more because you're like, my mind erased this from my memory of this game because I just remember the good times. Let's go to you, Ollie, guys. So this is your kind of first time playing at least this skate game at all. I guess almost same question to you, but from more of a fresh mind. Like, is this what you expected it to be?
It was like way more rooted in 2007 than I remembered. Than I expected. Like the intro movie was literally like the most 2007 thing I've ever seen. It's like
I skipped it. Like I need to.
Oh my God! It's like a Poundland version of Jackass. Like,
is it?
They like do all these crazy
live action as well.
Live action, yeah. They're like still an ambulance, and they're like like smashing through a hospital, and then like they you create a skater, they do that like on the operating table, and they're like, oh dude, like you got so messed up, man, like we gotta sort you out. When they, like,
I must have skipped this every time. I don't think I've ever seen this.
Good.
This is not any. That sounds so good.
And
it's like all like the skaters, like they're like the doctors, and just like the freeze frame with like their name coming up and stuff. Like
that's fun. Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, it really reminded me of the like if you seen any of the Jackass movies, like the big intros they do. It's like one of those. And then like
that's awesome.
the clothes you can buy as well are also like so 2007. There's a beanie with a little like peak, but you can only wear it like off to the side. It's literally like, oh my god, I used to have one of those. Like, I literally remember owning one of those. So that was all like really cool seeing all that. But then they have a lot of emphasis on the skaters that I've just never heard of. Like, I'm sure if you're like into skate culture, like I heard of Danny Way because of X Games. But apart from that, they would like zoom in on someone and like say who it is, and I'd be like, I don't know who that is, and they'd be like, oh hey man, did you know that's like Dill, whatever his name is? And I'd be like, no. But yeah, I think this game's got a lot of originality, like way more originality than we think. Now we're looking back at it, and there's been a few skate games. You got to think the control scheme is like incredibly unique and actually very clever. And also the structure of the game is so unique as well, where it's literally like you have a mission, but you can do it anywhere you want. Like you don't have to do it here. It could be like, oh, you need to do 3 grinds, 3 flip tricks, and land in a manual. Go and find somewhere where it's appropriate for you to do those things. And that's like seems quite modern for something so old. That it's not like
for some of the objectives, yeah, they're not all like that.
Yeah, they're not all like that. No. But yeah, some of them, the ones that are like that are really cool. The photography ones are also really cool. Like, I think the game has got a really unique idea in that it's bringing like media into the game. You have like photography challenges and video challenges. I don't think the photography is very good. Like every time I take a picture of you, like it's always a really bad picture. Like you have like your back to the camera, like your head down, and like you just can't see anything. And it's always like you're right in the middle of the frame. It's like, what are you doing?
And then also like do like this kickflip into this grind, and then do this flip out for a picture. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I can only pick one. Why do it just?
I remember back in the day, Ollie, you probably remember as well. Like in skateboard magazines, they'd have pictures of skaters doing tricks, and they would have like 10 of the skater, like
there we go.
In like an arc. And I was really expecting it to do that when it would like show all the pictures. I was like, oh, it's gonna do the cool arc thing. Never did it.
Yeah. No, it's a single picture. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I guess that's the one thing. So I'm not sure how much of the campaign, like I definitely have played the campaign, but in terms of like actual playthrough, the way I approached Skate was always just as a pure, I am going on here, almost like treating it like a skate session, in that like I would just go off and like try and find obscure obstacles and ways to create cool lines. But I do remember the filming challenges, and I remember having to get clips and things like that. And as someone who was like tangentially interested at the time in creation of those sorts of things, yeah, that used to get me really excited. And the replay editor as well, so cool. Like that's such a cool feature to have in the game, that you can like change the camera angles, and you can like create almost your own little skate edits, or imagine yourself creating them. So yeah, I was definitely all about that. Yeah.
When you were playing as a kid, then were you up? Because there is an online like social network for skate clips in the game. It's not active anymore, so obviously me and Joe didn't get to see it. But did you ever upload anything to that?
Gosh, probably not, because I mean, in 2007, I don't think I would have even had like Xbox Live or any so I think I probably really wanted to. I was like storing them all. No, I mean, I definitely didn't do that. But I would have loved to have seen the community back in the day. I think that would have been so interesting.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because the YouTuber community really took off in a big way for Skate 3. I think, like, I think a big push came from kind of PewDiePie, and that kind of like set a big wave for a lot of creators, to where they even ended up re-releasing the game, like physical copy, like years after it was released, because there was such an uptick in interest, and a lot of it from the jank and like the kind of the whole hall of meat taking
Hall of Meat's
damage and
pretty good.
ragdolling and
Meat,
so in particular with Skate 3, like that kind of became its own community. And I feel like a lot of people's avenue of knowing Skate in general isn't from kind of Skate 1 and 2 or even Skate 3's release. It's really from this kind of second wind through the content creator community, where I feel like a lot of the people, that's what they know Skate for, you know, whether they played it or not, like that's their association with this franchise, which is kind of why I was glad that you did choose Skate 1, because I kind of find it, like, I think it's just probably a little bit less spoke about. I mean, definitely less spoke about than the newer ones. I knew obviously it would probably be a little less quality of life. And from speaking to you guys now, that definitely seems to be the case. But it's why I was kind of like looking forward to kind of seeing the origins of the franchise.
Yeah. So what did you think then, Joe?
I was really impressed with the way it controlled. Like, I remembered it a little bit from back in the day, and I think we maybe didn't kind of give it justice earlier. It's not in like a case of, in Tony Hawk's you hold down X and then let go to Ollie and press square to flip or whatever. It's really like you're not doing an input and then it plays the move. It's not like Street Fighter where you input the half circle and press X and you do a Hadouken, and it's just a different type of input. It's like it matches exactly with when you do your movement, and there's an element of it being physics-based. Like, it's obviously not entirely physics-based because that would be like dreadful. Like, they got to kind of rein it in a little bit. But but like there's not like a activate like grind, like as you're saying, Ollie, like if you go like next to a curb and if you kind of get the angle right, you'll just be grinding because you are like it really gives it a bunch of granular control where you could go up a ramp or up a curb and do the exact same trick, but you could do it a bunch of different times and it will look different and it will look better or it will look worse depending on like your timing, and like you could input like style into the way you do your moves because it isn't just replaying a canned animation. And I think for the most part, apart from the rare moments of kind of jank where it kind of breaks through that barrier, I think that holds up really well. And a lot of the fun that I had wasn't in missions where I have to do a very specific trick or get a set score. It's really kind of just like testing the limit of that system and trying to kind of see how specific of a movement I can do, where I can say, I want to do exactly this. Let's see how exactly I can actually input it. That's what I think is the part that is still impressive to this day.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. The controls are like I text you, Joe, and I said like, have you figured out how to like lay down on your board, like go down hills?
Wait, what?
Did you know you can do that?
No, what?
Oh my God. So if you think about it logically, right? What you're doing is you're using both your hands and you're not using your feet. So if you press both the hand buttons and press the B button, which removes your feet, you'll be laying down. So I figured out how to do that so that you can fly down hills really fast, like Luigi. And then I also text Joe and said like, I can now do front flips. Yeah, and it's because like what you're doing is grabbing the board with both your hands and putting your body forward. And it's like if you just think about it like that, you can just do it because it's like, of course, like it makes perfect sense. And that is like unbelievable how well that works. And funnily enough, you brought up Street Fighter then, Joe, because it actually really reminded me of Tekken. And for anyone that's played Tekken, each of the 4 face buttons is a different limb. So if you watch someone do a combo, you're like, it's left hand, right leg, and you can just do it. And this is like very similar to that, and it's that's curious, super cool. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think that's really a good way of putting it in the Joe when you were talking about style as well, because I think it was really interesting for me. I coming back to playing the skate games, when I first started playing them like just a couple of days ago, I felt really, really clunky. And there was like certain things that things weren't quite weren't quite working. Like I was landing like slightly sideways. Like I'd forgotten like what the rotations are like. I'd forgotten how late you can like do kick flips, and I'd kind of lost like the granularity of my thumb. Like I reckon my thumb back when I was a kid was probably like a protractor. Like I could probably tell you exact angles, with this. This is purely for us, but the fact that I keep getting thumb animations as I'm doing this is very funny to me in the Discord. but yeah, like and it's really interesting that you say that, because when I came back to it, it's not like a game where I've forgotten combinations. It's like I know them. It's just it's not quite connecting like it used to. And I used to take great pride in how stylish I was as a skate player, and how I guess you'd use the term steezy my lines would be. And now I just I've really lost it.
That's the term I'd use. I use that term daily.
I think if I could think of words that I can't imagine you saying, I think it would actually be steezy.
I had steezy cornflakes this morning. They were delightful. I think that's absolutely right. I think the way I think of it is there's a lot of games that that might be kind of considered difficult games where I feel like it's really about learning a skill. Like the example I normally give is like Guitar Hero. It's like everyone knows like what input they need. It's like, oh, you've got to press the green button, the blue button, and the orange button in timing. But it's a skill that you've got to build up. Whereas like other games, like I think Dark Souls, there is a little bit of skill in terms of timing, but it's much more about knowledge that you're building up, like rather than like precise inputs. And this is a game where I completely feel like it is just a skill, and you can build up that muscle memory where like I know the input for the trick. Can I do it consistently? Can I do a nollie 360 variable like every time? Nope. Yeah. But I know the input that I need, but I can't execute it every time unless I trained and built up that muscle memory. Got a protractor thumb like Oli of Oli of yore. And in a way that kind of makes it a little bit, when you only have 2 weeks, it's a little bit of a difficult game to review, especially whereas for me, when I started off, I was really kind of focusing on like the story and the challenges. And I think I was kind of doing myself a bit of a disservice there, because they would say, hey, and I also felt it kind of went a little bit against like the culture of skating and the culture the game wanted to create, where they're like, hey, it's hanging out, setting ourselves challenges, trying to like beat personal goals. And then someone says like, hey, you need to jump to this exact spot and get 600 points. I'm like, well, that's not, like, that doesn't happen in skating. And, like, who's to say that this is worth 600 points? I thought it was awesome. I thought it was worth 1,000 points. Why is the man coming in here and saying whether I succeeded or failed? And so for a while, I was actually quite negative on this game, because I was getting, like, stress playing through. And I was also thinking, because I'm recording my footage, I'm like, oh my God, if people are going to watch this back and just see how bad I am, it's going to be like, ooh, gaming journalist or whatever,
Yeah, like, not steezy. Joe's got no steez.
No steez. I was stinky, not steezy. Was my problem. But then eventually, my last session, I completely ignored challenges and I just messed around, and I had like 5 times as much fun. And I'm so glad that was like my last, like my taste I have still in my mouth of this game, because I was so much happier with that. But I don't think we can ignore the campaign and the challenges, because I think most people who played this game would have done them. So some of you, Oli Guy, like what did you think of kind of the more like rigid structure of this game?
Well, the rate that you unlock new areas is really good. I was getting new areas all the time, new skate parks and stuff, but the challenges and that were mostly like, it just didn't seem like anyone had really thought about them beyond just making a checklist of things. It was like, you've got to do a 10-meter grind. Like, oh my God, a 10-meter grind. How am I going to do that? It's like, we'll just go to a curb. Like, it sounds like a big thing, but actually it isn't at all. Or it will be like, oh yeah, you need 8 seconds of airtime in this combo. And it's like, okay, well, I'll do my combo. Then at the end, I'll do 3 ollies in a row to get my airtime up. And it's like, why would I do anything other than that? Literally just like jumping at the end. And then there was another scenario they did, which like, I genuinely can't believe this made it past any testing or anything. But when you do like a best trick challenge and all the skaters go at the same time, and you're literally just smashing into each other and you can't see what you're doing, and it's literally like, who thought this was a good idea? Like, this is such a bad idea. Like, you the first one you do, there's one little ramp, right? Like a little hip or something. And there's literally like 8 guys all going towards it, and you just jump in the air and all slam into each other. It's like, this is just horrible.
It's actually a knockout contest. This is like, you need to make sure that none of them score any points. You need to be the one that lands.
You're like hugging all their skateboards, like running away.
Or it'll be like, oh yeah, we've got to do a challenge. We've got to do a challenge that's like, it's this double stair set, and then it's 30 seconds for best trick or something, or a minute. But when you jump down to the bottom, it doesn't teleport you back to the top. So you got to like figure out like how to get back to the top with like people jumping down and like pedestrians walking around. And it was just like all the stuff where you had to do things with other people was like literally just bad. There's one where you had to follow we have to follow people, and it's like they're just falling off their skateboard. It's like, what am I doing? Like, this guy's getting hit by cars, and then like they'll teleport like 200 meters ahead of you, and then you'll fail. Like, it was just like, what is happening?
Okay.
But I will say, not doing the campaign and just messing around doing my own thing was like so good, and figuring out how to do things and like setting up my own little lines and stuff like that was like probably some of the best open world like gaming fun I've had, because I played this for about 10 hours, maybe 11 hours, and I got to Plan B skate park. I don't know if either of you got there.
Gosh, no.
Yeah, I think it's kind of inside a warehousey place, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or am I
it's like the first place you go that's like a proper skate park. Like, it looks like a proper skate park rather than like cobbled together. And I think it took me quite a long time to get there, because I only did about 15 missions. And the rest of the time I was just hanging out and like playing around, which is awesome. But yeah, some of the actual like game design parts were like definitely seconds to just, skating sim.
Yeah, I do wonder, because Joe, you said like I think you think most people will play the campaign. I wonder if that might be the opposite. I think every friend that I had would kind of approach this game as like an open world skate simulator, and maybe wouldn't have done too many of the challenges. But also, I don't know how much of that is linked to obviously the challenges just being really bad and prescribed in a way. So it's like, I'm not entirely sure, because I don't know how many people got the game to just enjoy skating around versus doing the campaign. Because I don't think I ever did too much of the campaign, especially not in Skate 1. I think I truly just kind of experienced it as an open world skate simulator almost.
I wonder if the culture has somewhat shifted there. I wonder if back in the day we kind of viewed games a little bit more like toys. I think partly because of how few games we would have compared to now with like free to play and like cheap games, whereas you would get a game and you'd be like, I'm going to play this for 6 months until I'm able to get another game, and so you would just mess around in the world more. I think about of like the way I played GTA 3 compared to the way I played GTA 5 was very different.
Yeah, true.
And I wonder if now a lot of games feel a little bit more like checklisty. There's a lot more RPG elements, so it's like, well, if I'm not doing a thing that I'm going to get experience and level up in, then I don't care almost, because everything needs progression, whereas in this game, if you're just messing around by yourself, there is no progression apart from you getting better, and you're just enjoying yourself. So I do wonder if for the Skate reboot that EA are working on, I wonder if they will be able to capture that same vibe of, hey, just mess around, or have modern games trained the modern gamer to expect you to be getting rewards for every action you take.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
The stuff you can buy in this game as well, like, because most of the things you do earns money, but like, there's not really any point spending it. Like, there's not really anything. Like, it's clothes. You kind of pick your clothes at the beginning, and then that's it. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, you're sponsored now. And I wouldn't really be able to figure out what that meant, or like what I could do with that. So like, I just stuck with the outfit I had at the beginning. It's so crazy. It's literally like they made such a good and well-designed open world with like so many cool little spots for doing tricks that none of them feel like, well, a few of them, but most they don't feel like fake. They feel like they could be real locations that you can skate through.
Yeah.
But then the game side of it, like the actual like video game side of it, they're just like, we've got no idea what we're doing here. Like, we'll give you money that you don't really need to use. Like, there's obviously no level system, which I really like. There's like challenges that don't make sense. It's like, what is happening? Like, as soon as you try and play it.
Maybe it's a commentary on capitalism, That's what they were going for. It's a grand statement.
Did either of you feel like you were playing a massive advert? Like, there was a lot of like, they'd zoom in on skaters and be like, they'd be like, he's wearing an Adidas hat, and it would like come up on the screen, and I'd be like, I don't care.
Well, he even said like, go to your like Adidas store and pick them up for yourself. Like, it literally tells you to go to a shop and buy them, and then obviously it's like, oh, I'm getting a text on my T-Mobile flip phone, and it zooms
phone.
in on that.
Oh my god, the phone! I forgot about.
Yeah, the phone's awesome.
How 2007? It's like a flipping screen keyboard phone, like and everyone leaves you voicemails. That's like mostly how you get things as voicemails. Yeah, crazy. So 2007.
That is. I think you've brought up a very good point in that. Yeah, I think there's no and I guess it's for better and for worse. Like, it's not like I guess you're unlocking new areas, but yeah, the monetal side, it's not like you get a new, better board. You know, you don't get faster bearings or like, you know, or anything like that. It's like you start with the best gear, and everything is kind of cosmetic. Which again, like, you know, that could be a positive or a negative. It's kind of nice to
that's cool,
have the same tools. But equally, it would be nice if there was something that you could get. But with that being said, I don't know what it would be outside of cosmetic things, you know.
Yeah, although you got to think, like, I played for 11 hours and I had fun the entire time. I didn't really unlock anything, and it's kind of fine cool. because, yeah, exactly. Like if I bought that for 40 quid, I'd be like, great, got 11 hours out of it. Good times.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, I'm glad both of you had fun in the free roam elements anyway, because that is how I'm mostly interfaced with the game. So it's good to hear that I'm not completely blinded by nostalgia on that one. It's always good.
I might put you on the spot here a bit, Ollie, but do you remember what the campaign is like in Skate 3 or even Skate 2? If you remember them, did they change that? Because, as I say, Skate 1 really feels almost like a polished up prototype in a way. But yeah, the campaign obviously very basic. Do they expand that out to kind of have more of a traditional story campaign in the later games? Do you remember?
Oh, see, I might be speaking out. I feel like they are similar in that I think you are on your way to becoming a sponsored skater. I think I want to say there's definitely photo and video missions again. I think there's also there's a lot of comps. I think. But yeah, no, I can't quite remember. I do remember there's like Hall of Meat challenges. So there's definitely like take really big slam challenges, which were pretty popular. Yeah, I can't remember too much of Skate 3's campaign. Again, I interface with these games mainly as a free roam, and I think there's actually on that topic, because Ollie, you mentioned something really cool, which I think is great about Skate 1 that I actually noticed more with Skate 1 than the later games, which is that the world design does actually feel real. Like, it does feel like a lot of these spots do feel like they could exist, whereas I think later games, they actually do make every single place almost like a skate park. Like, you're almost guaranteed to have a bank that is like a quarter pipe, and, you know, you're almost guaranteed to have things that are just, it's basically everywhere that you are in the world is like a form of skate park with just different textures. Like, there's like transitions everywhere. There's like loads of banks and quarter pipes and things that you can carve around in. Whereas actually in Skate 1, you kind of skate through the city really having to look for spots. Like, a lot of it.
Yeah, it's cool though. It's cool.
Either for good or for better or for worse, you're kind of having to seek out cool spots to skate. Most of it is actually just kind of like skating around and being like, I think is that like a rail? Is that like a stair set and a rail in the distance? Oh, that's cool. Oh, is there like a bank into a fence, like with like a picnic bench there? Oh, that's kind of interesting. I think I could skate that. Yeah. Whereas I think in the later games, they definitely like pack the world much more with skatable elements, and I think that's potentially less fun in terms of like how it reflects what actual skating, I guess, would be like.
Yeah, what you just said reminded me of like when you play not GTA, when you play Tony Hawk's, and they literally have like, there's a truck driving around the neighborhood dragging a half pipe, and it's like, what?
That's what I was going to say. I think they've got to be careful, because that's one of the differentiators. Is, you know, Tony Hawk's, it's like the city is every level is a skate park. That's the way it's designed, and whereas, like, one of this thing's unique thing is, like, as you say, you could just find, like, a lot of my fun, I'd find one rail and I'd be like, let's just mess around on this one rail. That would be boring in Tony Hawk's, because Tony Hawk's is much more of leaning onto the platformer side, especially with kind of the grinds and the craziness. And the closer they take steps towards Tony Hawk's, the more they have to compete with that juggernaut, or at least, you know, it was when Skate 1 was released, Tony Hawk's was the juggernaut. It kind of
definitely.
It almost, probably coincidentally, but kind of marked the decline of Tony Hawk's in terms of at least popular discussion. You know, I think that kind of lines up a little bit, but it's kind of the really granular, you know, like literally a curb you could mess around with for an hour and find different things to do. Which is
and
cool.
they're not afraid to like point a ramp and then have the top of the ramp have like something on it that you can crash your skateboard into.
Yeah.
Whereas like,
that's
other
cool.
games they'd be like, let's make it just frictionless. So you're basically just like bouncing down like a water slide almost. But this game's like, we put something awkward there, but you will figure out a way to use it or get around it, which is really cool.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
On the Tony Hawk thing, what did you both think of the soundtrack of Skate?
I like
Joe.
it.
Yeah, you like okay, good because Joe.
I cut straight in there, so I completely
no worries.
Response.
I text Joe and said I think I had to turn the soundtrack off ambient mode, so it actually played music.
Oh right, that's interesting.
Did you do the same thing, or did you have to, or was it just?
I mean, mine was playing music, but I think the songs are definitely tied to location. I don't know if that is maybe a thing. Maybe you were just in bad musical spots. But no, I don't know. But yeah, I there was definitely certain songs that were coming on today that I definitely associated without realizing to Skate, which was interesting. Yeah, I like it.
Joe?
I enjoyed the music as well. Like, I think I think much less into just music in general than both of you, so I was probably kind of focusing on it a little bit less, kind of considering as it's obviously licensed tracks. There's definitely a lot of times of silence, like, you know, Tony Hawk's, you're just basically listening to an album and playing. Whereas I definitely had a lot of moments where there wasn't music and it would seem to come in during a certain challenge or a location or something, which I didn't mind because like the sound design, like the diegetic sound is really good in this game, like especially for like kind of grinds and stuff. Like you can really hear like all of like the little small noises, and I think you might lose a little bit of that if like the music's blaring. And even when the music came in, I think they were really trying to give the impression of like the music is being played in world, like you're in like a skate tournament and it sounds like, you know, like James bought a boombox in the corner and is playing music. Like, it doesn't sound like the music James is like inside like the player's head. I don't know, someone's Skater Dude 5 is there with his boombox and blasting the music. I mean, either that or it was bad mixing. Like, did either of you get that impression as well? Like, it sounded like the music wasn't just being played; it sounded like they were trying to put it in world. Maybe just because it was a bit quieter compared to like the skating sounds.
I think that might be the difference between the setting I had it on and ambient, because ambient now makes sense. Because I thought it meant like ambient tracks, like, you know, instrumentals. Right. So I switched it over to like soundtrack straight away. Just left it on soundtrack, which is like Tony Hawk.
So you probably didn't get that then. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. I think you can actually make playlists and stuff. I think there is an option for you to like create your own playlists and things in the game as well, which is kind of interesting. But I couldn't really name any tracks. But I think the vibe, I think it is, again, it's very reminiscent of skate films of that sort of era, I suppose. So I will always just naturally have like that. That's just an area of music that I do enjoy. So yeah, I quite like it, and I agree with Joe as well. I do feel like it has a certain element of feeling like definitely the music is tied to a certain location, and yeah, I think the way it's mixed, I think the sound of the skate part, the sound of like the actual skateboarding always comes through really strong in the mix, which again I really like, because I do think the skateboarding sounds, like the Oli sound is like perfect. You get that perfect like scoop and then like slap of the tail, and then you can hear the wheels spinning like that. Like it just, I think it sounds great, and I'm really glad that that's strong in the mix, because that definitely is reminiscent of skate films as well, and like the certain cameras that they used picked up skate sounds almost exactly like that. I think it's just I think they've nailed the vibe there. I would say,
and I think it's. Like I know we're going to keep comparing it to Tony Hawk's. It's kind of hard to. It's hard to avoid to, but I think one of the things that helps this for those sounds is the timings match up much closer to real life. Whereas in Tony Hawk's, you can be grinding and keep pressing buttons, and it's like, I'm doing a handstand now I'm spinning around, now I'm doing this. Like, it's like you're doing movements at a speed that you would never do in real life. So the sounds don't match up, and then they'll also play like a much more arcadey, like chun sound, like when you do a trick. So that kind of can really dominate it. Whereas in this game, you're much focused on just listening to the realistic sound. And then even me, who hasn't watched many skate videos, but everyone kind of knows them to a certain extent, where I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is what they sound like, but I'm playing it and I'm in control of it. And so even as not as big of a kind of skate fan in general, like I appreciated the feeling of being in a skate movie.
Yeah. The what you just said there about like on Tony Hawk, where you would kind of mash 300 tricks in a row. And I feel like for people that haven't played Skate, who might be thinking that it might be something like that, a really good example of how Skate's different is when you do a best trick contest. So in Tony Hawk, you would do a combo, and it'll be like 47 times 19,000 points. But then
it'd be like 2 minutes for one combo.
When you try and do a line in a best trick contest in this game, it's like, of that line, which one thing was the best thing you did? So like if you did a manual, then a kickflip, then a grind, it's like, of those 3 things, which one is the best trick? And that's really like how granular this game is compared to Tony Hawk, where it would just be like, just absolutely go mental on Tony Hawk, which is good fun, to be fair. It is good fun.
It's so fun. Like, so fun.
It's completely different. It's almost like comparing, like, I don't know, Counter-Strike and Unreal Tournament or something. Like, it's that.
Yeah, or I think different. Races, it's like Gran Turismo or Burnout. It's like they're both driving games, but they're both trying something very different. I think we should be clear, though, is even though it is closer matching reality, like, you can still be pretty ridiculous. Like, you could be on a grind and still keep doing like flip trick, like down one long rail. Like it doesn't like bound you too much by reality. And it kind of really leaves it up to the player. Like for me, I was almost kind of role playing being real, and I wouldn't want to be too, unless it's a stupid challenge and I got to get 300 points on a statue of a book. I hate that challenge. I'm going to do anything to pass it. But when I'm just messing around, I'm thinking like, I don't want to, do that. I want to try and like even in the way that I move, try and like make it look like I'm a real person skating. I kind of enjoyed role playing that because I can't skate, and so it feels more of like a fantasy if it feels more realistic. It's like if I play a game where I'm playing as Superman, like I can't relate to that at all. But where if I played someone who's like really strong but in a really realistic normal looking place, so that could be quite fun. Like
emotionally strong. Emotionally strong. You could be like, that's me.
It's really I relate.
I could role play. I could
Stoic and Steezy.
Stoic and Steezy. That's really interesting. That's it. Really interesting that you say that, though, because I think you could play like that in Tony Hawk. Like there's nothing stopping you playing like a real skater in Tony Hawk's, but nobody does. Whereas
I have before. Okay, I do remember loading up the school level, but no, it's not. It doesn't last too long because you accidentally do like a triple backflip. Yeah. So it's just, I do remember that.
No, I think it's interesting that Skate almost does create that environment where you want to almost roleplay as a real skater. And like what you were saying, where even like the independent tricks don't matter, in that you could do like the coolest kickflip into some kind of like really cool grind and then kickflip out, and then you like slightly turn and like scuff a curb on the way out, and you're like, oh, it's ruined. Like, that was terrible. I have to like go back up to the get. Like, I want to get like a clean one. Whereas you'd never think like that in Tony Hawk's. You're always, it's just like point scores, and I think that's really an interesting aspect of the skate games.
Yeah, and you can kind of create like one of the things I was trying to do was, I did it by accident once and kept trying to recreate it. Is you can do like a power slide where if you kind of just hold back. Yeah. As I was doing what you were talking about earlier, Ollie, where you do a trick and then you'd have to go back and try and loop around the curb. So I went across the road and then power slide to turn back round, and I did a power slide but went up like the lip of a curb and then like started grinding it. So I did like power slide to like board slide by accident, and I was like, that's cool. Like, I bet the developers didn't even think of it. Then I kept really trying to redo it, and I could never quite do it as well as the first time I did it by accident. But like those sorts of things where like that just isn't a thing in Tony Hawk's. Like that, they didn't create an exact animation for that, so it can't happen.
That's interesting. Yeah.
The in Tony Hawk 3 there was a cheat, realism mode, and it basically just made the gravity really strong, so you could like just about jump. And then also your grinds would like really pull you left or right. And like, it wasn't that fun.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, like I've had enough of that. And the other thing is, when I was looking at videos of people playing Skate on YouTube, there were so many videos that were like most realistic looking line, and people were like trying to make things that weren't completely mad. Because I mean, I still get Skate 3 videos on TikTok where it's people like running and jumping off a building and then like bombing down a hill and like flying. But in Skate 1, people seem to mostly try and make like something from 2007. Which, like, I keep saying, but it's because the atmosphere of 2007 is so strong in this game. Really took me back. Really took me back.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. That's what
I
noticed as well.
Did any members of the community play it as well, or did we get any questions come through, Ollie?
We did. We did, actually, funnily enough. Okay. Soren DC on YouTube. Ollie, this one can be for you. They said, Skate is one of my favourite franchises ever. I've played through all 3 games. My question is, if you've played the other games, which is your favourite and why? And they've also answered it, so I'm going to read that out first. Because I feel they're also good for their own reasons. In my opinion, I think Skate 1 has the most fun story. Skate 2 is the best map, and Skate 3 is the best gameplay, so it's hard for me to decide which is the best. Can you remember them separately?
Yeah, that's going to be the complicated thing, right? I'd say my hours spent is probably most in Skate 3. I think there's also... Like, one of the big features of Skate 3, which is awesome, and it might have been in Skate 2, is the ability to, like, create your own skate park, which is just awesome. Like, there's just no two ways about it. It's an awesome feature of a game that you can build your own park and, like, come up with just crazy... I'd spend so long trying to orientate ramps so that there was like a direct feature for the ramps, but then also just crazy transitions out that could then take me into other sections of the park. I would just spend ages just moving ramps like meter by meter and then like trying them endlessly. So I think that's like a big feature of Skate 3 that is awesome, and that was probably something I spent a lot of time on. And for that reason, I think Skate 3 is the best game, but I think Skate 1 brought so much new to the table and kind of came in at a completely different angle that I think I just think it's a groundbreaking one. There's also a lot of weight in it there. Skate 2 is probably awesome as well, but
a big reason why you and other people kind of end up blurring them together is they were released really shortly. Like it was 18 months between Skate 1 and 2, and then between Skate 2 and 3 was just 1 year between them. So they really kind of rapid fired them out at a very quick rate. And so I think that, if you were playing Skate 1 and then suddenly Skate 2 came out with these quality of life improvements, I know Skate 2 is kind of credited. From looking online, a lot of people really did prefer the map for it. And also online was apparently a lot better in Skate 2 as well. So people probably immediately dropped to Skate 2 and then Skate 3 comes out. And so you could understand why they might all kind of end up in people's mind mushing together.
That makes sense.
I think. Yeah. I swear Skate 3, from the little amount of time that I played it, I swear Skate 3 had more characters. And there was funny people standing around who you could speak to, and they would give you strange missions to do. And it was one of the first guys was the guy from My Name Is Earl, who I know is a professional skater as well. But he was doing funny bits.
Yeah, he does the tutorials and stuff. And
he was doing
sound
funny
effects,
stuff.
And he's wacky and
and then there was challenges for going under hurdles, and it was very much more funny. That's the only difference I can think. And obviously the graphics seem to be way better in the third one. I guess the budget was.
Yeah, it uses the Frostbite engine.
Oh really?
I guess because it was at the time where EA was kind of pushing everyone to use Frostbite, and all the developers were saying we don't want to use Frostbite. It's really difficult unless you're DICE. So I think that's probably why graphically it kind of holds up so well, because that was obviously one of the most impressive looking engines in its day, and the sound as well. It was one of the best engines for audio design as well. So that's probably benefits it quite well.
That makes sense.
Another question. Joe, I think you can answer this one, mate. The Chainsaw Cat on YouTube says, for guest and the boys if they have any input, but I'm giving it to you, Joe. What is the appeal of these games? Assuming that you can, why not just skateboard in real life? Keep in mind I'm someone who's never played these games or has any interest in skating. Thanks for all the great work, guys.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that for any sport game,
any
I guess,
sport
right?
Game. Yeah, it's I always think that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can say that for a football game or whatever. It's different. It's basically you could do things in this game that, unless you are the best skateboarder in the world, and even then, not really them, you could do in real life. Like you could do things without getting injured in your
pain.
Pain
was the first thing that came to mind of reasons why you would play a skate game versus doing it in real life.
I think it's obviously more adjacent to skating in real life than most other games that are replicating something that can be done in real life. It is much closer, and I think there's probably more directly a route from people that I like skating, so I like the skate games, or I really like the skate games, it got me into skating, but I don't think there's someone being like, I have this time free, what do I do, one of the two? I think they are absolutely different enough. I could have fun playing this game for 10 hours if I tried to go outside with a skateboard and do the same thing. All I would do was break a pair of shoes and maybe a bone. That's what the outcome would be.
Breaking shoes would be the best possible outcome, I think. If you're going to start a sentence with breaking after with skateboarding involved, I think shoes is the best possible thing that you could break.
It's an interesting question, but I think they are, even though they are closer than most kind of sport to game parallels, there's still a big difference.
Yeah, I remember it reminded me of a conversation I had with my dad when I was really young. I think I was probably 10 or 11, and he was playing Pro Evo, playing football on the PlayStation or something, and I was like, why would you play football PlayStation when you just play PlayStation in real life? And he was like, well, I can't play for England, can I? And then as soon as he said that, I was like, do you know what? No. I completely understand it. I completely get. Same with racing games. I'd be like, why can't you just drive? And it's well, I can't drive a Ferrari. So there we go. So there you go. Chainsaw Cat.
Even with esports, where it's I watched the Overwatch League, and it's why don't you just play Overwatch? Because it's literally exactly the same. They're just playing the same game that I am, but it's still but when I play it, it doesn't look like what it looks like when they play it. The skill at a thing is, I think, still a big differentiator.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I've got a couple more. Mitchy B on YouTube says, how does an old EA game compare to a new EA game? Is it still just designed to sell you more game? Lol. And actually, I forgot this was made by EA, and I was very surprised at the fact that I don't think there's any DLC. Or if there is, it's going to be a pair of cargo pants or a hat or something. It's literally complete. The game is complete. If you bought it now, there is nothing more to buy. You are fully in, and that's just very crazy to play in 2024, a game that has everything in it that you need, which I thought was pretty cool.
Is that part of the time? I'm not familiar with the 2007 games landscape. Was DLC rampant DLC still pretty common in 2007 or
no?
Okay.
Xbox 360 was the first console to have DLC.
Right. Okay.
And when Skyrim or Elder Scrolls released armor for your horse as DLC, it was headline news. That you could buy that and it was bad. Whereas now it's you can buy every single item of clothing for a Fortnite character. So back then there wasn't much.
It used to be very much you'd buy a game and then maybe you'll get a map pack with 3 maps or maybe a bit of story campaign. You wouldn't get microtransactions in the same way. And this is where you feel if this was released today in the modern one, there will be, cosmetics will be in microtransactions. Yeah. There might be its equivalent of a battle pass, and it will be tied to that progression. There'll probably be at minimum 2 currencies in the game that you got to keep track of. And it is really nice that, despite all of the product placement, at least they're within the game, they're not trying to make you buy stuff and you can focus on just skating, because it's a game about a vibe, and I really hate anytime they're trying to sell something to me that ruins the vibe. And so I think they got to be careful with the modern game to kind of bear that in mind.
Well, it's free to play, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh God! Okay, God. I mean, we got no chance. Then.
Okay,
it's free to play.
You're gonna have a naked character until
you want 4 wheels? Well, you better be getting your skate gems collected, because you already started with 2. You've got a manual everywhere.
No grip tape. You're just trying to do flip tricks. Your feet are sliding on the board.
I've been watching videos about the development of the new skate game, and it does actually look very nice. And the big feature is that you can place ramps, Ollie, like you like, but you can place them in the open world.
That's pretty cool.
You could be like, I'm going to put a little kicker here in front of this thing because I want to use it. And then, it's online. And it's also cross-platform with mobile, so I don't know how that's going to be. Maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be all right.
We'll see.
We'll see. The last question I pulled out, but just because I thought it was funny, what they said at the end. Tactical6666 says, how do you think this game compares to other skating games such as Tony Hawk, Oli Oli, and other skate games? And then they wrote, love the pod, and Oli has a fitting name for this game. There's now 2 of us. And not only that, they've mentioned Oli Oli. They've mentioned Oli Oli as well, the other skating game, which has got both as well. Which I really like Oli Oli. I think that game is really good. I don't know if you've played it.
I've never played Oli Oli. No.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Mate, it's good. It's good. It's cheap. It's like £3, and it's the same flick like as Skate.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But it's
is
2D.
It modern? Interesting.
2014.
Okay.
There's a sequel as well that came out, I think, last year. Oli Oli 2.
Yeah, Oli Oli 2, and then there's Oli Oli World, which is more like a platformer, like Super Mario World.
Right. Okay.
But the old one, Oli Oli 1 was awesome. Yeah, it was really cool.
Oh, I didn't know. I did not know that.
Do you have the name of the person who guessed that Mumbo Jumbo was going to be the guest? If I can put it up on screen for the video, if you don't. But there was some person who they saw that that there was a guest and they chose Skate, and they immediately guessed that it was going to be you as the guest.
That's interesting.
Which we were pretty impressed with.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah.
There is 2 other things I want to hit before we go to the list, just very quickly. One of them, I feel like, just social responsibility. It's worth mentioning. This game has 0 feminine options for your character.
Okay.
Like, you can only play as a man and men's clothes. There's nothing else, which I was like quite surprised at when I opened the character creator. I guess at the time that was okay, but I didn't think about it. And I was like, oh, I literally don't even get a choice.
They changed that in Skate 2. That got. I watched a review from the time, and they were criticizing it at the time as well.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. And the other thing is, Ollie, do you think this has influenced your enjoyment of making videos? Because so much of this game is about making a video, like a packaged video product or photography product. And obviously that's what you're doing now. Do you think there might be anything there that might have...
I definitely think it had like some influence. I think it's difficult to describe. I think it's difficult to work out what came first. I was consuming an enormous amount of skating media, but making skating films is expensive. Like, I didn't have money to buy like a VX1000 camera with like a fisheye lens and stuff like that. And I didn't have like a computer to edit the videos on. This is back when you obviously needed all of that stuff. So that was like a good outlet for me to create little videos and like play around being a skate video creator. Which then like eventually I went down the line and did get all the camera gear and did get myself a computer and started making videos of my friends down at the skate park. And that is how I started making videos, like in general. Like my first ever videos would have been BMXing films essentially. So and it's difficult to say how much it influenced it. Definitely skate videos in general got me to where I am today. How much like the skate game played into that, or just like fueled that fire, like kind of stoked it a little bit. I think it's a non-zero amount for sure.
Oh, right, yeah, nice.
If that was like a rambly answer, but
no, that's a good answer. That's because it's funny when I did the replay editor, I was like, oh, I can see exactly why you've picked this. Like as I was editing a replay, I was like, oh, I can see what I can always see the trajectory here of how this has happened. But yeah, funnily enough, me and Joey, we also used to make. I probably around exactly the same time used to also make videos on like a horrible little camera. But I don't know where we got the idea from to ever start doing it. I think it was parkour videos that we were like. We couldn't do it, but it was just like, oh, while we're doing that, why not film something else funny?
Of course.
Because we got the camera anyway. Do you know what I mean?
I was always making, even when I was by myself, I was making all my little animations and stuff by myself anyway. I think I've always, I don't know what my origin story is for that. You know, maybe it's just certain people like want to create things, and like video is kind of one of the earliest, most accessible ones. You know, you're probably not going to, write a novel or create a video game or whatever, that's true. So I guess that's probably like an outlet, because we actually did videos that were like some skate parody ones, and like a lot of us, like there was where I used to live, there was like an enormous like metal half pipe, like a full size one that like I never saw anyone ever skate on, because who could ever skate like
trap.
right? Yeah, it was like enormous. But like, so we would just like run up and like jump off the edge of it and like on the grass and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of filming doing that kind of stuff. But you know, the style of a lot of those videos was definitely inspired by kind of skater videos and Jackass and you know that sort of like late 90s, early 2000s style.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah, and like I think, yeah, Jackass. I mean, obviously, like Spike Jonze is like an incredible director, but he got his start making skate videos, and he did all the Jackass stuff. So I think like Jackass is obviously very skate coded, but yeah, all his skate films are like incredible. They're so good, and like shot on 16mm film, and just like awesome to watch even to this day. And like there's one that he did where this is very, very different to Skate, the game. You wouldn't been able to do this in the game, but like he did a skate video which was like tied to like an action film. So basically these skaters would kind of jump down stair sets, and then as they landed, the stair set would just explode, and it's like this completely ridiculous skate film, and it's just the coolest thing ever. And you just think to yourself, like, how do you have that idea? How do you get funding for that idea? How do you get people on board for this? Like, it's just ridiculous. It's just the best thing ever. Lots of fun memories watching those.
That's what the intro video is like for this game.
Okay, I need to watch it. I need to go back and watch it.
I think like you jump down a stair set and then you get hit by an ambulance. That's like the big the thing. Cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's good.
Nice.
Right. Is there anything else anyone has, or should we go to the list?
Well, one little last thing, just because I want to make sure I include the clip of it in the video version, is after I find out about the lying down on your skateboard, a lot of fun at the skate park, like just lying down on the top of like a bit where everyone goes and just waiting for skaters to come and like fall over me. I just literally just lying there on my skateboard. I just want to make sure I have a reason to include that clip and to explain it a little bit. So that's something you can do. Also, it does actually relate a little bit to what you were saying about banging into each other. I agree with like some of the contests where it's like do the best trick and everyone's starting at the same time. But I think they are like when you're trying to do a trick and you're like avoiding pedestrians and stuff, I think like they know that they're going to get in your way and you're going to bail, but I think they're trying to like that's skating, you know, you're skating in public, like the fact that they include security guards that will chase you off, and like there's cars and people. I think they're saying like that's what you do when like when skating is like that's one of the obstacles, and I think they're trying to not ignore that. So I think that is intentional. But I think sometimes it goes too far in those contests where it's like this is ridiculous. Like no one would ever like see everyone going to the same point and not stop.
I haven't done that for a while, so that would skip my mind. But that would definitely be a negative I would mention if I had experienced it.
Right. Time to put it on the list, I think. Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/the bonus points. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo!
You've got a lot of games on here. So
got a lot of episodes, mate.
No, I know, but it's just that I must. So I was watching one recently with Jimmy, because I thought I've watched the ones with you guys, but then I thought I'd watch one with a guest just to see how you also like how you do it with a guest and how things change. And I think you're on like number 18.
That'd be World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah, World of Warcraft.
With Jimmy.
Yeah.
That was a little while ago. Yeah, so this is the 67th entry of the list. So we've done a lot of games, because it was funny when we started the podcast, we were like, and then we rank them, and we're like, okay, game number 1 we put up, now game number 2, is it better or worse than game number 1?
That's hard. Yeah,
but now we have like really
benchmark.
Like in our mind we have very like distinct zones, like there's real like thresholds of like barriers. Will it be above or below this game? So just to kind of explain the rules, I suppose. So the final say is down to Oli and I. It is our list, but feel free to influence and argue up or down for whatever you think. And the way we're ranking them is the best way we describe it is how much fun did we have with the game over the last 2 weeks. So it's not the best game, like it's not the most influential game. It's basically we take everything into consideration, like how much do we appreciate the game after spending 2 weeks with it is kind of the mentality that we go with, because otherwise some kind of classic games just become too dominant if you start including their influence. So that's kind of the way we do things. So with that in mind, Oli Brotherhood, where, if you did have free control, would you want Skate 1 to end up?
Oh, that's a good question. If I had total control, I mean, how many games? Like, I'm trying to get my own benchmark game, but I don't play that many games. This is what I'm working from. Well, I've obviously played Grand Theft Auto 5, and I personally find it more fun than GTA 5. So for me, it's going to be in the top 10. Which is always.
Have you played any other games that are in our top 10?
So, funnily enough, I have played Beyond Good and Evil as a young child.
That's not in our top 10!
Really surprised me to see that on there. Because I haven't thought of, I just saw that and I was like, I know that name. But yeah, I cannot remember. They just remastered it. I can't remember a single thing about it. But I remember quite enjoying it. So, but I don't know. Other than that, there is... Oh, I've played Subterra, the board game. That was actually with you, Joe, I think. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, I mean... Super Metroid, I might have played that. And then...
Resident Evil? I'm trying to think of what, some of the... Or maybe one of the Sonic games. Or you're pretty a bit too young for Sonic 3, I guess, maybe, unless...
Yeah, so I've literally played 2 of the games.
Have you not played...
so funny.
Oh, Walking Dead. Oh, no, not the Walking Dead.
What about Jet Set Radio?
What is that? Is that...
It's rollerblading.
That one.
Rollerblading game.
No, I haven't played it. No.
Oh, God. Right, okay.
No, yeah, I'm really low on this.
No, that's
fine.
You could be
can't even invite this jock onto the podcast, Ollie.
Absolute Chad.
He's going to give us noogies after this for being such nerds.
I'd say I would put it... okay, because I've also mentioned a decent number of flaws with the game. But I do think it is... I think it's a more fun, especially game to pick up casually, than Grand Theft Auto 5. But then I have heard amazing things about a lot of the things that are in the top. Yeah, I mean, even Portal 2. I'd actually say where you've put it is probably about bang on. Okay. I'd say it replaces Grand Theft Auto 5 in the top 10. That's my own.
So where Roddy's talking about is it would be at number 10, knocking GTA 5 out, and then being one under Portal 2 to take the new 10
maybe
spot. So
maybe above Portal 2. Maybe above Portal 2, because I just feel...
Have you ever played Portal 2?
I have briefly, and my immediate pickup of it was it is kind of fun, but I still don't think it is as fun as Skates.
No, this is going to be a tough conversation.
Look, we asked you what game you would bring, and you picked Skates. Of course, you're going to put it high.
It would be embarrassing if I put it quite low. That would be a really... But with that being said, when I suggested it, I thought it was the best game that's ever existed. Now, after playing it for a few weeks, I'm accepting a certain amount of flaws in it, but I still think it's fun. So I think it belongs, sort of the late top 10s, I'd say.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cap forward, Ollie.
Well, we're both cap forward, Ollie. Now.
Let me turn around.
Oh, sorry.
I've turned it around. I'm back in Pokemon mode. He
doesn't really get serious.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Ollie Guy. Where? What? Let's just get a zone for starters here. What sort of zone are you looking at?
I'm thinking 20 to 30.
Okay, so 20 is Earthbound, and 30 is Good Boy Galaxy.
Good Boy Galaxy.
I think it needs to go above Jet Set Radio Future, because if that's its comparison. And if we're comparing it to the way it controls, Skate is infinitely better than Jet Set Radio. So Jet Set Radio for you, Ollie, is it's a game with amazing style, an incredible soundtrack. I don't know if you want to silently put on just a trailer for it and just see the vibe of it. It's all about graffiti and rollerblades. It looks like the most fun time in the world. It is awful to play. The controls are
I think you've spoken to me about this. Yeah. I'm very familiar. You've spoken to me about this.
This was Martin's pick.
Yes,
for Martin Littlewood's pick for the.
Gosh, it
for the
does look
podcast.
cool.
It
It's almost
looks
like Gorillas
It's
coded.
cool.
It's almost like Gorillas coded
cel shaded
almost.
style.
But what I would say is, for anyone that doesn't know, is that like if you imagine Skate, and then Tony Hawk is the other end of that spectrum. If you imagine Tony Hawk's actually the halfway point, and the other end of the spectrum would be Jet Set Radio, where it's like, it's not really about skating. It's like more about like the style and the story and the music, and it just kind of throws all the skating stuff out the window over the fact that you're wearing rollerblades.
Like when you grind, you don't have to press a button to grind. You just jump on a rail, and there's no balancing or anything. You're just
no physics.
Go. You can grind like up like lampposts like vertically.
Amazing.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Amazing.
Once you start controlling it with the camera and the control, coming into it fresh last year, I struggled with it. So I definitely had a lot more fun with Skate. You know, they are vastly different games, but they're the closest match for a genre. So I think for me, it would actually kind of end up settling there. I think I would probably put it under Alan Wake and then one above Jet Set Radio. So for me, it would end up at 29.
Okay. I think for me, disregarding Killer 7, which I think is one of the best games ever made, and we completed it today, I would probably put it one above Outer Wilds, one below Subterra. Just in terms of like how much fun did I actually have? Like, that's exactly where I put it. Like, I had more fun playing Subterra with you in real life. No, I had less fun than that, but I had more fun when I was booting up Outer Wilds. I think I'm saying this around the wrong way. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's one above Outer Wilds, one below Subterra. So that's where I would. That's where I'd put it.
I wonder if, and like, so just to be clear, Ollie, I am glad that you chose the first one and not Skate 3. I wonder if the experience I would have had in Skate 3 would have been enough to put it higher. Like the camera stuff and being able to get off your board. Like for the majority of my time playing this game, I was annoyed like with those little frustrations. Even when they're doing a challenge and like they just wouldn't explain it very well, and they'd be like, do this like nollie 360 flip over hover grind, and I'm like, what? I don't even know what. And I'm like, what? Please let me see an example of it being done or describe it more like the specific way you want it to be. Like there was a lot of my time playing was those frustrations, and I think it's very easy to give it a big pass for saying, oh yeah, but free play mode is really fun and you could just do that. But it's like that feels a little bit disingenuous for when you're evaluating it, whereas it's like the whole career mode is almost like a downer compared to the free play. You know, maybe if we went in and like one of you or someone just said to me like, hey, just do free play and ignore the rest, maybe I'd be more positive. But I feel like there's another version where like they're both good and you can get off your skateboard and the camera's a little bit better and it's a little bit less janky. And maybe that is Skate 3 and it would end up higher. But for me, like that's why I really wouldn't want to budge too much higher than I said, just because of those realities.
I do get you. I would say if I'm allowed to fight the corner of Skate a tiny bit, in that if we take a game like Minecraft, I think if you then approach that as like a linear to kill the Ender Dragon, I think it's probably not the most fun game in the world in terms of like that progression is really boring.
I understand that, but the game doesn't push you to do it. The game sets
true.
When you load up Minecraft, you're just in a world and you can do whatever you want. Whereas in this, it starts up a cutscene and someone tells me to do things. I bring up the map. It's like littered with icons for things that the game wants me to do. It's going to reward me for doing like the game pushes me to do that, and you almost need to like get through a mental barrier and be like, no, like turn my gamer brain off, ignore that, just play. And I think Minecraft, the spirit is the freeform side of it, whereas
that is true.
Skate, you almost feel like you're playing in a way that it wasn't entirely intended, at least like for when starting off in a game. Normally you're like, do the campaign for a bit and then mess around, or once I've finished the campaign, whereas here you kind of probably want to ignore the challenges most of the time, but then again, that's how you unlock new places you can go to as well. So even then it's hard to entirely ignore it.
If you'd picked up Skate first, you could have made Stampy's Radical World, and it would be a very different
Stampy's Steezy World.
Steezy World. It would be a very different lifestyle you would have led.
Maybe in the new Skate game, that's what I'll do. I'll build my Steezy World.
I'm just imagining it. You're just still in, like, we see you now and you look like a creator character from Skate. It's like the parallel universe has gone off. That's so funny.
I think we can leave it where it is, because also it's one below Alan Wake, and I really like Alan Wake. So I think that's kind
middle
of okay.
of the table.
It's weird. Middle of the table, but it's weird with the list because it's like so many of the games are not where I would put them that it's like really hard to judge where things should go. So yeah, I think 29 is fine for that.
I'm happy with that.
That's not bad for the first game in like a trilogy that like gradually improved, and for like a game from like 2007, which is like there's kind of a lot of our lists, a lot of the high ones either end up being like modern releases that do things better than any other game have done before. Like when you look at kind of like the top 5, or even like probably most of the top 10 are kind of that era. And then there's a lot of games that, you know, are like almost down that nostalgia route. You've got like things like Doom and Earthbound and Yoshi's Island. There's that kind of almost more awkward middle era where they're doing a thing that could be done today and would look nicer, but like it's kind of got there through innovation. So it's kind of like a tough era of game to do well, and also just a tough era for at the time for it to release in. Like 2007 is like, if you look up the list of games that came out in 2007, it's just so many incredible games. So the fact that it was
cool.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, Call of Duty 4, like Halo 3, like Bioshock, I think Mass Effect 2007, like it's a ridiculous year for games. And so the fact that it managed to elbow its way to among those giants, it did really well. So thanks for bringing Skate into my life. I would have probably never played it otherwise, and I'm glad I did.
Oh, that's so cool. It's been such a pleasure playing it again, to be honest with you, and nerding out about it and talking about it. It's been really cool.
Cool. Do you think you're going to go back to it, or any of the other Skate games?
I mean, I've now like got my Xbox and TV out of the storage container that they were in, and I know that I've got Skate 3 loaded up. So now I can actually go and play Skate 3, which is what I'm most psyched for.
Would you feel like guilty playing it, knowing that you're meant to be playing Skate 1 for research? Was that, like we always get that anytime it's like we're doing a game for a podcast, and it's like, well, I'm going to play a game that isn't for the podcast. Like I feel so rebellious.
God forbid. Yeah,
I'm going to binge on Skate 3 now.
This is our lives. It's like stress trying to finish games before the next podcast. But we love it. We love it. It's worth it for the conversations. So right, do you want to just read out maybe, Ollie, kind of like 26 to 30, just to kind of give an idea of Skate's company?
Okay, so number 26 is recent episode Harold Halibut. And then 27 is What Remains of Edith Finch, which was a community pick. 28 is Alan Wake. 29 is Skate, this game, 2007. And then in 30 is Jet Set Radio Future, which is the superior skating game.
There's a typo in the way you wrote Skate as well. You forgot the full stop at the end.
Stop.
No one's going to know what the game is otherwise.
Yeah.
There you go. It's got a full stop.
Because the SEO wasn't bad enough already. We had to add a bit of punctuation into it.
Yeah, and also Skate game is already something, isn't it? Where you collect the letters, or like you get the letters for not doing the trick.
True.
Like, even that doesn't work. Like,
what a mess. So they were not thinking it through.
Right. Shall I read out what's coming up?
Please do.
Okay, so next episode we have Titanfall 2 on July 26th. And then on August 9th, we've got Indica, which is a new release on PS5, Xbox. I think it might actually be on all the modern platforms. And then
PC
on August 23rd, PC, August 23rd, we've got Splinter Cell Blacklist. And then, jumping forward 4 episodes, on October 18th, we've got Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, which has just been announced. So I added it to the calendar.
You just decided and just let me know we're doing that because you're excited about it.
Yes. Did you ever play Dead Rising?
So is that right when it's releasing then? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You didn't play it? It was an Xbox 360
I've seen
banger.
I've seen the trailer for Dead Rising, the first one. Isn't it the one that's got like a really cinematic, like sad trailer? Or am I going completely wrong?
I think you're thinking of Gears of War.
No, he's thinking of Dead Island.
Dead Island. Is it Dead Island?
In the hotel where it's all in reverse.
I think
you showed
it to me.
Yeah, I think I did ride your house the other day. I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. There we go.
Yeah, I think I ruined the vibe. We were all chatting. I mentioned the trailer, and we all sat there in silence and watched it from my phone, and I bummed everyone out.
So, that was really good, Joe. Thanks for doing that. No, it just shows how much of my gaming knowledge also just comes from conversations with you. It's like the only tangential gaming related stuff that I know is actually from conversations that I've had with Joseph.
Well, tell you, your homework should be pick any game from our top 10 and play it. Don't mention it to me which one you pick. Just play it and then bring it up in conversation with me, and I'll see
That's
whether
a good idea.
You can judge our taste.
I like the sound of
no time pressure.
I'm not going to say.
I actually, not to influence you, but I think you might actually like Death Stranding.
Okay.
So maybe it'll run on your Mac as well. I know you got a Mac.
Nice.
As do I.
That's pretty useful.
That's a wild card one.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a Marmite game. Ollie and I both love it. Not everyone does, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Ollie does as well. He'd 100% appreciate it. Don't know if he'd love it.
Okay, cool. Okay,
Nice one.
I'll add that to my list. Yeah.
Right, in terms of bonus point stuff, I'm done. So, Joe.
Okay. Oh, you quit.
He's retired.
I'm quitting. I'm done. Imagine that. In terms of bonus point stuff, I'm done. I just like just walk
Just
off.
like slap the mic off.
Yeah.
Put your hand to it.
So you got a new Ollie now. New Ollie.
I've got nothing more to add. Nothing more to add. Yeah. I think that's everything. So, Ollie, thanks so much for joining us and bringing this game to our show.
Thank you.
No problem. So much fun.
And thanks for the effort you put in your setup, both to play the game and also, you won't be able to see this, but he had to. Did you mount your bike to the wall to then dangle your camera from it?
That was not the easiest way of. I didn't look at my bike and go, I've got it. No, my bike is already above my desk. That's where it lives, and then. Yeah, I have a very funny first world problem where I only own cinema cameras. I don't have any kind of low quality cameras. Didn't think to record my webcam, or at least couldn't work out how to do it. So I have magic armed a pocket cinema camera from the pedal of my BMX.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't do it on the wheel, because otherwise the footage will be.
You could get a cool shot. You should do the other pedal. And
honestly, part of me. So I do have this, which is like an old mini DV with a fisheye, and I was very. Almost considering just really leaning into the skate vibe by just having a fish-eyed mini DV as my webcam. But yeah, I didn't do it.
Oh dear. Anyway, though, so that's the end of this episode here. Once again, thank you so much, Ollie, for joining us, both Ollies. It's been a really fun chat. Looking forward to hear what everyone thinks in the comments. If you have any memories yourselves of any of the skate games, this is the best place to share them. But apart from that, we will be back in 2 weeks talking about Titanfall 2. So thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you all later. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
See you later.